They claimed no cadet could survive Earth, unaware a human sat in the front row. Ethan Brooks walked slowly into the academy hall. His boots clicked softly on the polished metal floor, and he could feel the eyes of the cadets on him. The room was huge, taller than any building he had seen on Earth, with rows of seats that curved like a half-moon. Alien cadets of all shapes and sizes sat around him, their skin colors ranging from pale blue to deep red, some with scales, some with feathers, and others with smooth, shining surfaces that reflected the lights. They stared at him with curiosity, confusion, and sometimes amusement. The instructors were already at the front, standing on a raised platform. One of them, a tall figure with 6 eyes and green fur, pointed at the cadets in the front row. "Today," the instructor said in a voice that rumbled like distant thunder, "we will speak of survival on Deathworlds. It is widely accepted that no cadet could survive Earth. Its gravity crushes, its weather kills, and its animals hunt without mercy. Any cadet from a primitive world would fail before noon." A wave of laughter rolled through the room. Alien cadets whispered among themselves and shook their heads, some snickering openly. One cadet with purple skin and 4 arms leaned toward his neighbor and said, "Look at the human. He probably can't even lift the survival pack." Ethan ignored them. He sat straight, hands on his lap, eyes focused on the instructor. He had expected this. Humans were rarely taken seriously outside Earth. The stories of Earth's danger had traveled across the galaxy, but most alien species saw humans as weak. They thought humans were lucky to survive their own planet, and now they would prove it. The instructor continued, "Today, we will discuss how cadets survive in hostile environments. This includes extreme weather, dangerous wildlife, and limited resources. I expect the cadets to take notes. Those who fail to adapt will fail the academy." Ethan opened his small notebook. He had always carried one, even on missions in the outer colonies. He wrote down each word carefully. Humans learn to observe first and act later, a lesson passed down through generations on Earth. Another instructor, shorter but covered in rough scales, raised his claws and pointed at Ethan. "And here is our human. Tell me, Cadet Brooks, have you ever faced a real death world?" Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. "I have survived storms, predators, and sickness on Earth." The instructor snorted. "Storms, predators, sickness. You mean insects and weak animals. You will see that Earth is nothing compared to the Academy trials." The alien cadets laughed again. Some of them leaned back in their chairs and waved their hands as if to show the human that he would fail. Ethan did not respond. He had grown used to this. Humans often faced disbelief, underestimation, and mockery. It did not matter. He knew what Earth had taught him. After the lecture, the cadets were assigned their first survival trial. The Academy would transport them to a simulated world designed to mimic Earth's most dangerous features: heavy gravity, violent storms, dense forests, and unpredictable wildlife. Most alien cadets were excited to see the challenge, believing they would easily overcome it. Ethan checked his equipment carefully. He had a survival pack strapped to his back, containing water, basic food rations, and simple tools. He also carried a small med kit and a multi-purpose knife. Nothing advanced, nothing flashy. Humans learned to survive with what they had, not what they wished for. As the transport ships prepared for departure, cadets exchanged words of encouragement and mockery. One alien cadet, blue-skinned with 6 fingers on each hand, whispered to another, "This human will last 10 minutes. Mark my words." Ethan heard them but said nothing. He remembered the nights on Earth when he had faced storms that tore roofs off houses and rivers that rose in hours. He remembered fending off wild animals to protect his younger sister. He remembered the sickness that had taken his father and how he had survived without help. All of this had trained him, in ways no alien could understand, for the trials ahead. The transport ships hummed and shook as they left the academy. The human cadet felt the sudden pull of gravity adjustments as the ship entered orbit. He held onto the railing, steady and calm, while alien cadets gripped theirs tightly, some whining or complaining at the sudden pressure. When they landed, the doors opened to reveal a landscape that made even veteran cadets pause. The ground was uneven, filled with rocks and mud. The sky roared with thunder, clouds swirling as if alive. Lightning struck nearby, and gusts of wind knocked cadets off balance. Alien cadets immediately began scanning the terrain, some panicking at the heavy gravity that pressed down on their bodies. Ethan stepped off the transport carefully. He felt the weight of the gravity but did not stumble. He adjusted his boots, bent slightly at the knees, and began walking forward. The ground seemed heavier than anything he had ever faced, but he was used to labor and endurance. On Earth, heavy rains and strong winds had often forced him to move through mud and water for hours. This was nothing new. As he moved, he saw alien cadets already struggling. One fell into a muddy pit, unable to pull himself out. Another screamed as a gust of wind knocked him sideways. Others tried to use advanced equipment, but it failed under the environmental stress. Ethan watched, then offered a hand to a purple-skinned cadet stuck in the mud. The cadet hesitated, then accepted. Ethan pulled him out with steady strength. "Thank you," the alien muttered, surprised. "I didn't think humans could do this." Ethan shrugged. "You learn to survive or you die. It's simple." He continued moving, finding small shelters to avoid lightning strikes. He collected food from plants and water from streams, always careful, always observing. Alien cadets nearby struggled to find water that would not make them sick or food that would sustain them. Some tried to climb trees to avoid predators, only to fall due to the heavy gravity. Hours passed. Many cadets gave up and requested evacuation. The instructors watched with growing surprise. They had not expected a human to adapt so quickly. Alien cadets whispered to each other, watching Ethan move with calm precision. Some began to doubt the academy's teachings. By the end of the day, several cadets were injured, exhausted, or completely failed. Ethan, on the other hand, had built a small shelter, found enough food for a few days, and tended to those injured around him. When the transport returned to collect the cadets, instructors approached him. "Cadet Brooks," one said, voice low, "how do you survive so easily?" Ethan answered simply, "I learned on Earth. I learned to watch, to wait, to act when necessary. I learned to keep going even when nothing else seems possible." The instructors looked at each other, unsure. One of them muttered, "It cannot be that Earth made humans strong. It must be luck." Ethan smiled faintly but said nothing. He knew the truth. Survival was never luck. It was patience, observation, endurance, and willpower. Humans were shaped by danger, and no alien training could match years of life in a world that demanded constant struggle. That night, cadets returned to the academy. Alien cadets avoided eye contact with Ethan, some feeling shame, others fear. They realized that the human had done what they thought impossible. Instructors quietly reviewed reports on human physiology and history, noting that every claim of weakness had been wrong. A human could survive Earth, and now one had survived the Academy simulation as well. Ethan lay on his cot in the dormitory, tired but alert. He knew this was only the beginning. The trials would become harder, the dangers more extreme. But he was ready. He thought of his home, of the storms, of the animals, of the nights spent in danger. He had survived Earth, and now he would survive this academy. Outside, the wind howled, clouds rumbled, and lightning lit the sky in sharp flashes. Cadets from alien worlds shivered, thinking of the dangers that awaited them. Ethan simply listened, thinking of the lessons Earth had taught him. Never give up, always observe, and survive by any means necessary. In the front row, he closed his notebook and smiled faintly. He knew the galaxy had underestimated humans for the last time. The next morning, the cadets gathered at the landing zone again. The Academy's instructors had prepared a larger trial, one meant to test endurance, intelligence, and quick thinking. The planet they would be sent to was designed to be harsher than Earth, or at least that was what the instructors claimed. Heavy winds tore across the landscape, and jagged rocks and cliffs stretched as far as the eye could see. Alien cadets murmured nervously. Some hid their fear behind bravado, others whispered to their friends. Ethan stood at the front, his boots firm on the ground, his survival pack tight against his back. He had slept little, thinking of the previous trial and how it had shown him that he could endure more than most expected. He looked at the other cadets, seeing panic and doubt in their eyes. For some, this world was already the end. "Remember," one instructor said, his voice echoing over the landing field, "this is a trial of survival. You must find food, water, and shelter. Predators and dangerous terrain will test you. Those who fail will be removed from the academy." The cadets nodded nervously. Many checked their gear again, adjusting straps, scanning maps, or consulting alien devices that promised safety. Ethan opened his small notebook and checked his notes. He did not need complicated gadgets. Observation, patience, and endurance were more powerful than any tool. The transport ships lifted off and descended onto the rugged surface. The moment the doors opened, a violent gust of wind pushed some cadets off balance. Rocks shifted, loose soil slid under feet, and alien cadets cried out in alarm. One red-scaled cadet fell hard, scraping his arm on the sharp rocks. He hissed in pain. Ethan was close and offered his hand. The cadet hesitated but took it, letting the human pull him up. "Thank you," the cadet said quietly, his voice full of surprise. "I did not think anyone could survive here," Ethan shrugged. "You learn to keep going, that is all." The cadets began moving in groups or alone, depending on their confidence. Some climbed the cliffs to find high ground, others ran toward the forested valleys. Ethan chose a middle path, moving slowly and carefully. He examined the ground, the plants, and the water streams. Everything mattered. One wrong step could break a bone, and one sip of unsafe water could weaken even the strongest cadet. As the day wore on, the dangers became clear. Jagged rocks cut through boots and skin. Sudden drops in terrain caused alien cadets to stumble or fall. Some tried to run and found that their alien physiology could not handle the heavy gravity. One purple-skinned cadet who had laughed at Ethan the previous day cried out for help after slipping in a muddy stream. Ethan ran to her side, holding her steady while she regained her balance. "You humans are strange," she muttered, shaking off the mud. "You move slowly but you do not fall," Ethan smiled faintly. "Earth teaches balance, patience, observation. That is why humans survive." He moved on, finding a small stream of clean water. He drank carefully, using his hands to filter out dirt, then filled his water container. He searched for edible plants and found roots and berries that would sustain him for hours. Alien cadets nearby struggled to find anything safe to eat. Some ate poisonous plants by mistake and doubled over in pain. Others failed to catch small animals that ran too quickly in the heavy terrain. As night fell, the real dangers emerged. Predators, both simulated and real, prowled the valleys. Their eyes glowed in the dark and their claws scraped the rocks. Alien cadets panicked. One group tried to climb trees to hide but fell under the heavy gravity. Another cadet froze, unable to move as the wind howled and predators circled. Ethan crouched in the shadows, watching carefully. He had learned on Earth how to wait, how to move silently, how to avoid drawing attention. He helped another cadet, a tall blue one with long limbs, who had tripped on a root and sprained his ankle. Ethan wrapped the cadet's leg with a simple bandage from his medkit and encouraged him to move slowly. Together, they found a small cave for shelter. Ethan collected loose branches and rocks to build a barrier against the wind and predators. The alien cadet looked at him in astonishment. "How do you do this?" the cadet asked. You seem calm even with danger all around. Ethan shook his head. I do not panic. Panic kills. You survive by thinking, by moving carefully, and by helping others when you can. It is simple. Hours passed. The storm grew stronger, the wind bending trees and throwing debris across the ground. Alien cadets screamed and ran blindly, some falling into holes or getting trapped under rocks. Ethan stayed low, checking the cave, tending to those he could help. He offered water and food to cadets who had not prepared. Some accepted, some ignored him, too proud or too panicked to listen. By morning, the storm had passed. The landscape was scarred, trees broken, and rocks scattered. Alien cadets were exhausted, injured, or completely drained. Many had given up entirely, calling for extraction from the academy. Ethan, on the other hand, was tired but ready. He had found enough food and water for himself and others. He had built temporary shelters and helped cadets survive the night. He had not rested, but he had survived. The instructors arrived, observing the results. They were silent at first, then whispered among themselves. Reports showed that the human cadet had not only survived, but had helped other cadets survive as well. His endurance, focus, and quick thinking had outperformed every alien cadet in the trial. They had expected failure, but what they found was something remarkable. This human, one instructor said quietly, he is not weak, he is extraordinary. Ethan returned to the transport with the other cadets. Alien cadets avoided looking at him, some out of shame, others out of disbelief. He did not boast. He did not need to. His performance spoke for itself. The instructors, however, were curious. They began reviewing human physiology data, studying Earth's environment and comparing it to the survival requirements. They had underestimated humans. They had assumed weakness. Now that assumption had been shattered. Back at the academy, the human cadet was allowed to rest, though he spent time in quiet observation. He took notes, recorded strategies, and considered the next trial. Each trial would be harder, more dangerous, more unpredictable. But Ethan knew he could survive. He thought of the forests, rivers, and storms of Earth. He thought of nights spent in danger, of hunger and exhaustion, of fear and persistence. Humans survived because they had no choice, and that made them strong. The alien cadets spoke in hushed tones, some openly questioning the Academy's teachings. One whispered, "Maybe Earth is not a death world. Maybe humans are made for survival." Ethan overheard them but did not respond. He had no need to prove anything further. The evidence was clear. His actions had spoken louder than words. He had survived the impossible. He had shown that humans were not fragile, not lucky, but resilient in ways other species could not imagine. The instructors convened in secret, discussing how to proceed. The Academy's belief that no cadet could survive Earth had been proven wrong. A single human had survived not because of tools or luck, but because of endurance, intelligence, and the will to keep moving. As night fell on the Academy, Ethan lay in his cot again, tired but alert. He thought about the next trial, knowing that the challenges would grow. Predators would become smarter, terrain more dangerous, and weather more extreme. But he had confidence. He had survived Earth. He had survived the Academy's simulation. He could survive anything. Outside, the sky was dark, and the winds from the trial planet echoed faintly through the Academy's halls. Alien cadets shivered, thinking of the dangers that awaited them. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the strength of a species shaped by survival itself. The galaxy had underestimated humans. It would not make the same mistake again. The Academy's instructors were not pleased with the results of the first survival trial. Too many cadets had failed, and the human, Ethan Brooks, had performed better than anyone expected. Whispers spread among the alien cadets, some filled with fear, others with disbelief. The instructors decided the next trial would be even harder, designed to test endurance, intelligence, and teamwork under extreme pressure. The cadets gathered in the briefing room. The walls were metallic, reflecting light from overhead lamps. A large screen showed a new planet, darker and wilder than before. Jagged mountains, deep ravines, and thick forests filled the landscape. Violent storms moved constantly across the planet's surface, lightning flashing in random directions. Rivers ran swiftly, carrying debris, and dangerous predators lurked in the shadows. "This trial," one instructor said, his voice low and serious, "is unlike anything you have faced. The terrain is unpredictable, weather is deadly, predators hunt without pause. You will be tested for strength, speed, patience, and intelligence. Cadets who cannot adapt will fail. Those who survive may earn recognition in Academy history." The alien cadets exchanged nervous glances. They had seen Ethan survive the previous trial, and some of them were beginning to worry. A red-scaled cadet muttered to his neighbor, "If that human can survive, what chance do we have?" Ethan listened quietly. He did not answer. He had learned that fear weakened alien cadets more than danger itself. He checked his gear carefully, making sure his med kit, knife, and water supply were secure. He opened his small notebook and reviewed the notes from the first trial. Observation, patience, and endurance. Those were his tools. The cadets were transported to the planet in small shuttles. The moment the doors opened, the storm hit them with full force. Rain poured down like heavy metal sheets, and winds pushed cadets sideways. Jagged rocks and mud made every step difficult. Alien cadets screamed, slipped, and struggled against the heavy gravity and chaos. Some tried to climb cliffs or jump over ravines, only to fall or get stuck. Ethan moved steadily, keeping low to reduce wind impact. He scanned the ground for safe paths and held his water container in one hand while keeping his med kit accessible. He did not rush. He moved with care, noting small changes in terrain and weather. He found shelter under a rocky overhang and called out to a cadet nearby who was struggling. "Over here," he shouted. A green-skinned cadet with thin limbs scrambled toward him, slipping in mud. Ethan reached out and pulled the cadet to safety. "Why are you so calm?" the cadet asked, breathing heavily. "I'm panicking and you just move as if nothing is happening." Ethan shrugged. "Panic kills. You survive by thinking, not by screaming. Keep moving, stay aware, and do not give up." The cadets moved in small groups, but most were disorganized. Some argued over where to go, others ignored danger until it was too late. Predators moved silently, hunting those who showed weakness or hesitation. One cadet, blue-skinned with 4 arms, fell into a river and was nearly swept away. Ethan jumped in without hesitation, grabbing the cadet's arm and pulling him to shore. "You humans," the cadet gasped. "You are unstoppable." Ethan said nothing. He only checked that the cadet was safe, offered water, and told him to rest before moving again. He knew survival required calm thinking and small steps. Rushing caused mistakes. Mistakes caused failure. As the day wore on, the challenges grew. Lightning struck close to some cadets, forcing them to drop their equipment and run blindly. Jagged cliffs required careful climbing, and some cadets fell, injured or exhausted. Ethan moved from group to group, helping where he could, offering water, food, and encouragement. Alien cadets began to notice his skill and endurance. Some whispered to each other, saying humans must be from a planet stronger than they imagined. By nightfall, the storm became worse. Heavy rain, strong wind, and predators hunting in the dark made every moment dangerous. Alien cadets panicked. One purple-skinned cadet froze near the edge of a cliff, unable to move as the wind threatened to push her over. Ethan approached quietly, speaking softly. "Step back slowly," he said. "Watch your footing. One step at a time. You will be safe if you focus." She followed his instructions, moving backward carefully until she was on solid ground. She looked at him with wide eyes. How do you stay so calm?" Ethan simply replied. "You survive by staying alive. Panic does not help." As night fell fully, Ethan found a small cave for shelter. He gathered branches and rocks to form barriers against wind and predators. He made space for a few alien cadets who had no shelter and shared his water and food. Some accepted his help, others refused, too proud or scared. Ethan did not argue, he focused on survival. Hours passed. The storm raged on. Alien cadets cried out in fear or pain. Some tried to move blindly and were injured further. Ethan tended to minor wounds, encouraged others to stay calm, and observed predators moving nearby. He planned routes for escape, marking safe paths in his notebook. One alien cadet, Lyra, had mocked him during the first trial. She had purple skin and sharp eyes, and she had laughed at the idea of a human surviving. Now she was trapped in the open, terrified of predators and the storm. Ethan reached her, guiding her to the cave. She followed reluctantly, shivering and whispering. I thought humans were weak," she admitted quietly. I was wrong," Ethan nodded. "Strength is not shown by muscle alone. It is patience, endurance, and will. Anyone can survive if they stay calm and keep moving." Lyra watched him, understanding something she had never realized. Humans survived because they had been trained by danger, not by comfort. Earth was their teacher, and it had been harsh. The alien cadets had training, tools, and devices, but they lacked the instincts shaped by real struggle. Throughout the night, Ethan helped other cadets as needed, sharing food and water, offering advice, and leading them to safe areas. He did not boast. He did not demand recognition. His actions spoke for themselves. Alien cadets who had mocked him before now watched in awe, some feeling fear, others respect. By dawn, the storm had passed. The landscape was scarred, with broken trees, flooded streams, and jagged rocks scattered across the land. Many alien cadets were exhausted, injured, or completely defeated. Some called for extraction, unable to continue. Ethan, though tired, was ready to move. He had survived, helped others survive, and planned the next steps. The instructors arrived to observe the results. They were quiet at first, then whispered among themselves. Reports showed that Ethan had not only survived but had outperformed every other cadet in endurance, intelligence, and leadership. The instructors had believed humans were weak, unable to survive a death world like Earth. Now, they realized they had been wrong. A human had not only survived but had helped others survive as well. "He is remarkable," one instructor said quietly. "This human shows skills beyond any other cadet in Academy history." Ethan returned to the Academy with the other cadets. Alien cadets avoided looking at him, some out of shame, others in disbelief. Whispers spread quickly through the Academy. Humans were stronger than anyone had thought. Ethan lay in his cot that night, exhausted but alert. He thought about Earth, the storms he had survived, the predators he had faced, and the nights spent hungry and scared. He remembered how fear could paralyze others, but how patience and endurance had kept him alive. Humans had survived Earth for centuries, learning to observe, wait, and act. This trial was just another lesson. Alien cadets slept uneasily, haunted by fear and respect for the human cadet. Instructors debated how to proceed, realizing that the Academy's belief that no cadet could survive Earth had been shattered. One human had proved that survival was not about tools or advanced training. It was about will, intelligence, and experience shaped by a harsh world. Ethan closed his notebook and smiled faintly. The trials would continue and the dangers would grow. Predators would become smarter, terrain more difficult, and weather more extreme. But he was ready. Humans survived because they had no choice. They endured because giving up was not an option. They survived because they had been trained by the harshest teacher of all. Earth. After the second trial, the Academy instructors gathered in private. Their faces were serious, and some eyes widened as they reviewed the reports. A human cadet, Ethan Brooks, had survived conditions that had defeated almost every alien cadet. Not only had he survived, but he had helped others, demonstrated intelligence, endurance, and leadership. The instructors could not ignore the results. "How is this possible?" one instructor asked. His 6 eyes blinked in confusion. "No cadet should survive Earth conditions, and yet he thrives. We must understand why." Another instructor, covered in blue scales, frowned. "I've checked the physiology reports. Humans should fail. Their bones are too weak for heavy gravity. Their lungs cannot handle toxic air. Their stamina is below average. And yet he adapts, he endures, he survives." They turned to archived data about Earth. They reviewed human history, records of storms, predators, diseases, and the harsh terrain of the planet. It became clear that humans had been shaped by danger from the beginning. Every city, every village, every forest had taught humans to survive or die. Back at the academy, Ethan prepared for the next trial. He reviewed his notes carefully. He had survived storms, predators, and exhaustion, and he had helped alien cadets along the way. He knew the next challenges would be harder, but he also knew humans had a unique advantage. They had learned to endure suffering, to plan, and to act calmly under pressure. He had learned patience, observation, and problem-solving in situations where hesitation meant death. Alien cadets continued to watch him with fear and growing respect. Lyra, the cadet who had mocked him before, now observed quietly, whispering to her friends. He is not weak. Earth must have trained him for survival in ways we cannot imagine." The academy instructors decided to test Ethan further. They created a trial that combined physical danger, mental challenge, and social interaction. It would test leadership, intelligence, and the ability to adapt. Ethan was placed in a situation where he had to navigate a dangerous valley, avoid predators, find water, and organize other cadets to survive. As the trial began, many alien cadets panicked. They argued over direction, struggled with the terrain, and feared predators. Ethan moved slowly, carefully, assessing the situation. He helped an injured cadet climb a cliff and guided a group away from unstable ground. He shared water, offered advice, and encouraged others to move calmly. Alien cadets began to follow him, seeing that his guidance kept them alive. One instructor observed from a distance. "He is teaching them. He is leading them naturally. How can a human, without training in our academy methods, manage this?" Another instructor replied, "It is instinct. Earth has made humans survivors. Everything they have experienced strengthens them in ways we cannot replicate with training alone." As the trial continued, predators appeared, rivers swelled, and storms rolled across the landscape. Alien cadets panicked and struggled, while Ethan guided them safely. He showed them how to use natural shelters, how to find food and water, and how to move without drawing attention from predators. Lyra followed closely, now fully aware that humans were exceptional. At the end of the trial, the instructors convened again. The reports were clear. Ethan had not only survived, he had led other cadets successfully. Alien cadets had learned to trust his guidance, and several credited him with saving their lives. The instructors realized the truth about humans. They had underestimated the species. Humans were not fragile, not weak, and not lucky. They had been forged by danger, sharpened by hardship, and trained by Earth itself. The head instructor spoke. "Humans are unique. Their planet shapes them for survival, unlike any other world. Every hardship, every predator, every storm has taught them skills we cannot replicate. The Academy has been wrong about Earth. We must reconsider our beliefs." Ethan returned to the Academy, quiet and alert. He did not boast about his success. He knew that survival was never about recognition. It was about staying alive, helping others, and learning from experience. Alien cadets continued to watch him, some in awe, some with fear. They realized that their own training, no matter how advanced, could not replace the instinct and endurance humans had developed naturally. In the following days, instructors began teaching cadets about the real strength of humans. They reviewed Earth's history, climate, and wildlife. They explained that humans had endured conditions that most species would find fatal. Alien cadets listened in silence, some ashamed of their previous mockery. Lyra spoke quietly to her friends. "We thought humans were weak, but they are the strongest we have seen. Their planet has trained them better than any academy." Ethan continued to train, not only for survival but to prepare for future trials. He knew that the academy would challenge him further. He studied maps, planned routes, and prepared equipment, but most importantly, he relied on patience, observation, and endurance. These were his true strengths, taught by Earth, shaped by experience. The instructors realized that humans could not be judged by the same standards as alien cadets. They had underestimated the species for centuries, believing Earth was a death world that no one could survive. Now they understood that humans were survivors by nature, capable of enduring conditions that would break other species. One instructor said quietly, "We must change the academy. We cannot continue to dismiss humans as weak. We must learn from them and we must prepare future cadets differently." Ethan overheard this but did not react. He understood that humans had always been underestimated. It did not matter. What mattered was survival, learning, and helping others. The galaxy could take notice or it could ignore him. Either way, humans would continue to endure. As he rested that night, Ethan thought of Earth. He remembered storms that tore through villages, rivers that flooded without warning, predators that hunted silently, and nights spent cold and hungry. He remembered fear, exhaustion, and pain, but also endurance, ingenuity, and persistence. Humans survived because they had no choice. Giving up was not an option. Alien cadets began to treat him differently. They no longer mocked him openly. Some approached him for advice, some followed his example, and some whispered among themselves about the strength of humans. Lyra, in particular, had become a quiet supporter, acknowledging that the human cadet had survived what they could not. The instructors decided to document Ethan's trials in the academy records. They studied every action, every decision, every strategy he used. They realized that humans were not only physically resilient but mentally strong, able to plan, lead, and endure extreme conditions. Humans had evolved under constant danger, giving them skills that no alien species could replicate without experiencing the same hardships. Ethan continued to train, prepare, and observe. He knew that the final trial would be the most dangerous yet. Predators would be smarter, terrain more unstable, and weather more extreme. But he had confidence. Humans survived Earth. They endured hardship, adapted to danger, and never gave up. No trial, no predator, no storm could break that spirit. The Academy instructors met one last time to discuss their findings. They realized that the human cadet had changed their perspective. Earth was no longer a death world to them. Humans were no longer weak. The galaxy had been wrong to dismiss the species, and the Academy would have to rethink its training methods. Ethan, sitting quietly in his dormitory, reflected on the trials. He knew that he had proven humans could survive the impossible. He knew that his strength came not from tools or devices, but from experience, patience, and endurance. He had faced danger before the Academy ever existed, and that had prepared him better than any alien training. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. Now, instructors, alien cadets, and even leaders would see that humans were survivors. Ethan closed his notebook, thinking of the future. The next trial would come, but he was ready. Humans survived not because they were lucky, but because they had been trained by the harshest teacher of all. Earth, the final trial, was announced with a tension that filled the Academy. It would combine everything the cadets had faced before: harsh terrain, violent weather, dangerous predators, and mental challenges. The instructors warned that this trial was designed to test the limits of endurance and intelligence. Cadets who failed would be removed from the Academy permanently. Ethan Brooks prepared quietly. He checked his equipment carefully, making sure his med kit, water, and food were secure. He reviewed his notes from the previous trials. Observation, patience, endurance, and calm thinking had allowed him to survive so far. He knew that the final trial would be more difficult, but he also knew humans had a unique advantage. They had been trained by Earth itself, hardened by danger and shaped by necessity. Alien cadets eyed him nervously. Some whispered to each other, "He will survive again, we cannot match him." Others avoided looking at him directly, unsure whether to admire or fear the human cadet. Lyra, the cadet who had mocked him before, stood quietly behind the others, watching and learning. She had come to respect him. The cadets were transported to the trial planet, a place of jagged cliffs, rushing rivers, deep forests, and unpredictable weather. The moment they arrived, a storm hit. Winds whipped across the landscape, rain poured in sheets, and lightning lit the sky. Alien cadets screamed and struggled to move, while Ethan moved steadily, keeping low and scanning the terrain. The trial required cadets to navigate a dangerous valley, cross rivers, avoid predators, and reach a safe zone marked by the instructors. Many alien cadets panicked immediately. Some argued about which path to take, others froze in fear, and several tried to use advanced devices that failed in the storm. Ethan observed carefully. He guided injured or confused cadets, offering water, food, and advice. He found temporary shelters to protect against lightning and wind. He moved slowly, deliberately, using every step wisely. His training on Earth had taught him to survive in extreme conditions, and now every lesson was useful. One alien cadet slipped on the muddy slope and cried out. Ethan reached him quickly, pulling him to safety. "Thank you," the cadet gasped. I don't know how you do this." Ethan shrugged. "Stay calm, think carefully, do not panic, survive one step at a time." As the cadets moved through the valley, predators appeared. They were fast, silent, and deadly. Alien cadets panicked, running blindly or trying to fight with tools that were useless. Ethan guided the cadets to higher ground, choosing paths that predators could not reach. He instructed them to stay low, move slowly, and watch the environment carefully. Many followed his guidance, realizing that his way was the only way to survive. Hours passed. Rivers rose from the storm, making crossing dangerous. Cliffs became slippery and rocks fell from above. Alien cadets were exhausted, some injured, some calling for evacuation. Ethan stayed calm, helping those who could continue, planning safe routes and keeping morale high. He shared water and food carefully, encouraging cadets to rest briefly when needed. Lyra, watching him closely, realized something she had not understood before. Humans survived not because they were physically stronger, but because they had been trained by hardship. Fear did not control them. Exhaustion did not break them. They thought clearly, acted carefully, and endured pain without giving up. Earth had made them survivors, and the Academy's trials were nothing compared to what humans had already faced. As night fell, the cadets found themselves trapped on a rocky ledge. Predators circled below, and the storm had not stopped. Alien cadets panicked. Ethan assessed the situation carefully. He led the cadets to a narrow cave in the cliff, using rocks and branches to block the entrance. He kept the cadets calm, gave water, and instructed them on how to remain silent to avoid predators. "You humans," one cadet whispered, shivering, "you survive everything." Ethan replied simply, "You survive by staying alive, by helping others, and by keeping calm. That is all." The night was long. Winds howled, predators moved outside, and alien cadets feared for their lives. Ethan stayed alert, tending minor injuries, encouraging quiet, and planning routes for the morning. He knew that panic or rash decisions would be fatal. His strength was not in fighting predators, but in thinking, observing, and acting carefully. Morning came and the storm finally cleared. The landscape was scarred, trees broken, rivers high, and rocks scattered. Alien cadets were exhausted, injured, or defeated. Many had given up entirely, calling for evacuation. Ethan, tired but alert, assessed the path to the safe zone. He guided those who could move, helping injured cadets along the way. As they moved, alien cadets began to follow him naturally. Lyra and a few others kept close, learning how he navigated obstacles, avoided predators, and moved efficiently through the storm-damaged terrain. Instructors watched from a distance, astonished. They had never seen a cadet lead so effectively, survive so completely, and remain calm under such conditions. Finally, they reached the safe zone. Ethan and the surviving cadets stood together, wet, tired, and covered in mud and scratches. Instructors arrived, studying the results. The reports showed that Ethan had survived everything, helped other cadets survive, and completed the trial faster and more safely than anyone else. Alien cadets, even those who had mocked him before, looked at him with awe. "Cadet Brooks," one instructor said, voice quiet but firm, "you have completed the Academy's most dangerous trial. Not only have you survived, you have led others, outperformed expectations, and proven that humans are stronger than we ever believed. Congratulations." Ethan nodded quietly. He did not boast. He had survived, yes, but he knew that survival was not about recognition. It was about endurance, calm thinking, and helping others when possible. He had proven the point, but that was enough. Alien cadets came forward hesitantly. Some shook his hand, some simply nodded. Lyra approached him last. I misjudged you," she said softly. "Humans are stronger than we imagined. Thank you for showing me." Ethan smiled faintly. "I only survive. That is all humans do. Survive, adapt, and keep moving." The instructors convened again, realizing the truth. Earth was no longer a death world. Humans were no longer weak or fragile. Their planet had forged them into survivors capable of enduring conditions that would defeat other species. The Academy had been wrong, and the galaxy would need to reconsider humans' place among the stars. Ethan returned to the Academy dormitory. He sat quietly, reflecting on the trials. Each one had been dangerous, exhausting, and challenging, but humans were trained for exactly this. Earth had taught him patience, endurance, observation, and problem-solving. It had taught him to survive where others would fail. That was his true strength. Alien cadets now treated him with respect. They asked questions, followed his example, and some quietly admitted they had underestimated humans for too long. Instructors reviewed the trials, marking him as the highest-scoring cadet in Academy history. The galaxy had witnessed a human not only surviving but thriving where no other species could. The final lesson was clear to all who observed. Humans were survivors. Not by chance, not by luck, but by nature, by experience, and by the harsh training of their home world. No academy, no trial, and no danger could change that. Humans endured, adapted, and led. They had survived the impossible, and now the galaxy knew it. As Ethan closed his notebook for the last time, he looked out at the stars beyond the Academy. Humans had been underestimated, dismissed, and doubted. Now they would be recognized, not for conquest or power, but for the simple truth that they survived where others could not. The galaxy had learned a lesson that would never be forgotten. Earth breeds survivors, and humans are among the strongest. And with that, Ethan Brooks stood quietly in the front row, the same position he had held since the first lecture, calm, composed, and ready for whatever challenges awaited next. The trials were over, but the proof of human strength would endure, echoing through the Academy, the galaxy, and generations of cadets to come.